tryna see the whole world. I can give you the whole world. To the seed in this world, they telling me my little boy gon' be a whole girl.
Hey y'all, we are back in action. Today I'm gonna be getting into my water birth experience and how the cutest pie I ever baked came about. I'm not gonna go into the benefits of a water birth and a lotus birth in this video. I'm gonna go into that in another video. I'm just going to get into why I decided to do a water birth and, you know, the water birth experiences. I had looked into water birth and stuff already. I already looked them up. My friends told me about them before, so I kind of already knew that was the path I was wanting to take because I wanted to have a natural water birth. I didn't want to have a birth at a hospital. I didn't want to have a birth on my back. It just seemed more relaxing to have a water birth. So that's what I wanted to do. So I had did some research and I found the birthing center that I went to. I set up an appointment to do a tour there. I did a tour. They showed me all the rooms of where I could have had a bed birth or a water birth. They didn't offer any epidural or anything like that. The only thing they had was, like, to ease the pain was laughing gas. And I heard that don't even really work like that. So I just felt like they were gonna be like the best option, and they definitely were. They were the bomb. I'm so glad I went there. So I set up my first appointment and they took care of all my prenatal visits from that point on. And I was about like 10 or 12 weeks at the time. So fast forward to the day I was in labor, which was April 17th. I was 39 weeks pregnant. So that night I did have friends over. My boyfriend was hosting the event that night, so he was gone. So whenever my first homegirl had came over, like, I was a little crampy or whatever. Didn't think too much of it because I thought it was just Braxton Hicks cramps. So keep in mind, I was 39 weeks pregnant and I was peeing myself a lot when I laugh, when I cough, when I sneeze, all the time. So I always had a pad on. So when I sat down, I had peed myself, or so I thought. And my cousin had just recently told me that she was like, oh, well, when I was pregnant, that happened to me. The same thing happened to me. So I'm like, okay, cool. You know, it was just pee, whatever. So then I'm like sitting there. I'm not laughing. I'm not coughing. I'm not sneezing, nothing. So, and like more is coming out. And I was like, all right, I guess. The liquid keeps coming out. This is weird. She was like, oh, okay, maybe we can go back. I don't know. All right, let me go check what it is. But it was like nothing. I was like, okay. So I texted my cousin that told me about it, and she was like, yeah, maybe you should tell your midwife. And I was like, yeah, I'm finna tell my midwife that I'm peeing myself. Like, you think I'm stupid? No. So it's around 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and more fluid is coming out. I'm like, what the heck? So I go to the bathroom again. And when I went to the bathroom that time, I wiped myself and my mucus plug came out. So I'm like, all right. But my other homegirl had just told me, because she was pregnant too a few weeks before me. So she had just told me that her mucus plug came out, but whenever hers came out, she didn't have her baby for another 2 weeks. So I was thinking I still had time, right? Cause I'm thinking like my baby's gonna get here on the 27th, not the 18th. So whenever it came out, I didn't think too much of it, but I did call my midwife at that point and told her, right? So she was like, okay, well, that means that you can have the baby anytime between now and 2 weeks from now. So I'm like, all right, bet, 2 weeks from now it is. You know, I'm having cramps, but at this point, he's so big in my stomach and there's not too much room. So every time he moves, it's like, it feels tighter. So it's tight, like, my stomach is tight, but I'm not thinking too much of it. I'm thinking it's Braxton Hicks cramps. I'm thinking it's him moving, trying to get comfortable, can't find a comfortable position or something. So, you know, I'm just like, these things kind of hurt a little bit, but all right, whatever. So I told my boyfriend, I told my mom that my mucus plug fell out, and I called my midwife or whatever. I let them know everything. When my mucus plug came out, like, it was just that, like, just my mucus plug. So, like, no extra fluid, nothing. The fluid stopped coming out and everything. So I come back, I play some games with my homegirls. At this point, it's probably like 12:30 in the morning. And like those cramps came back and they were just hurting even more. I'm like, what the heck? So I'm like, okay, I'm sorry y'all, but I've gotta go lay down or something because this ain't right. So, and I called my midwife again. So I had told her, like, you know, it's hurting. She was like, okay, well, if it's hurting too bad, you can always get in the water and in some warm water and see if they subside. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I go lay down. So my boyfriend comes back, and whenever he gets back, we try to go to sleep because it's late. It's like a little after 1 a.m. And while we were trying to go to sleep, those cramps just kept on coming. Like, and they were getting more intense. And my midwife had told me, like, okay, well, wait until, you know, they're, I believe she said like 60 seconds apart or something like that, and lasting a certain amount of time. But they weren't lasting that long, and they were like super far apart. So I'm like, okay, it's just cramps, right? I'm like, let me just get in this water. So my boyfriend filled up the tub for me. I'm like in there trying to relax. So I'm in the tub and it feels a lot better. Like, let me tell you, that water helped me so much. So I had got in there and I was just chilling in there. So he's like sitting on the toilet next to me, like just waiting for me. And I'm like, you know what, you can go to sleep. Like, I'm seeing you tired. Like, I'm just finna be in here chilling. So it takes a minute. He finally goes or whatever. Then like a few minutes after him, I get up and I go to the room to try to go to sleep. I tried to lay down and go to sleep. They said, I had like cramps bad. Like, it hurt super bad. Wasn't pleasant. So like it just felt like cramps though. Like intense cramps. It didn't feel like, well, it didn't feel like what I thought was supposed to be contractions. So I was like, no, I gotta go back, right? So ran another bath, got in there. So it's probably like 3 o'clock in the morning at this point. I had went in there. I started falling asleep in the tub, and my boyfriend's trying to wake me up. He's like, wake up, like, just come to the room. And I'm like, bro, I cannot go to sleep in the bed. Like, I'm just finna chill out right in here and go to sleep right in here because this is where I feel better. So eventually I get out again and I try to go back in bed. Not even 10 minutes later, I'm like, no. So I go back and I get in the water again for a third time. And still the same thing. Like, it helped when I was in the water. They were like not as painful. They were not as close together. I was able to fall asleep. Like, it was just so much better than being outside the water, right? So I knew for a fact that when I got to that birth center, they needed that tub filled. So yeah, I had got out and I was like, okay, let me just try to go back to sleep, right? So I got out, I laid down, it wasn't having it again. So, but this time I felt like I had to poop really bad. So I go to the bathroom, I sit on the toilet, I'm like trying to push out this poop so crazy. And then I remember what my doula said. She said, when you're ready to push and have the baby, it's gonna feel like you're pushing out a watermelon. So I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm trying to push out this poop so bad, and then it dawns on me what she said. I'm like, oh shoot, it's about that time. So I look, I'm like bleeding, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like crying at this point. Like, I'm like, I don't even know what to do, but I'm like crying, but no tears are coming. I'm just like in pain, like screaming, crying a little bit. So my boyfriend wakes up and I'm like on the phone with my midwife and I'm telling her like, no, like, we need to go to the birth center right now because this is too much for me. So I call my doula also. I'm like, yeah, meet me there or beat me there. And I told my boyfriend to call my mom because she had my my labor bag with all my stuff in it because we had just moved, so I still had all my stuff that I wanted to pack at her house. So like I said, I thought I still had time, so I was not as prepared as I should have been. So he called my mom. We all get up and try to go. I'm trying to walk out of the bathroom, and I'm like, every step I take is like painful. I like can't even take any steps. So my boyfriend's like trying to calm me down, you know, telling me to breathe, like trying to walk with me, trying to get me downstairs and to the car. So we get to the car, and it's about 5 o'clock in the morning at this point, like 5 something in the morning. And so I'm falling asleep in the car. Like I said, I've been up that whole time, haven't been getting no real sleep. So I'm falling asleep in the car, and like in between contractions, basically. So every time a contraction came, I like woke up and I was like hurting, in pain. And so my boyfriend's like flooring that mug down the E-way. So we get there in a jiffy, and we all pull up at the same time. My mom, my midwife, my doula, me. We all pull up at the same time. I go inside, I get on the bed, and when I get on the bed, it's 6:11, right? So I get on the bed, and the midwife assistant is like, oh, let me see how dilated you are, right? So she texts me, girl, 10 centimeters dilated. So I'm like, oh Lord, I need that tub filled up. I need it filled up like right now. So they're like, okay, we're gonna try to fill it. No, I need that filled up because that's the only thing that's relaxing me is being in the tub. So they get filled up just enough. So I slide in there. My doula and my midwife and everybody's like trying to talk me through it. They're like telling me to breathe, like touching my shoulder so I'm not so tense. So they also told me about the Ring of Fire, and which is a real thing. So it's like where your JJ feels like it's on fire because the baby's head is crowning. So that's how you know you're like almost there, like almost at the end, basically. So it's like a ring of fire, and it burns like the pits of hell. So I'm like pushing. I'm not trying to take no breaks because that pain of the ring of fire was something else. So I'm like trying to get through all that. Like if I just push this baby out, my JJ will not be on fire no more. So I need this baby to come out right now. So I pushed maybe 3 or 4 times, I believe 3 times, and bloop, pops out like a watermelon seed. I had him at 6:41, so it was a good 30 minutes that I was like there and had like in labor and had him. So they put him on my chest. You know, I'm crying and everything, of course, and then they take me out of the tub. I go out onto the bed. I'm holding the baby, like skin to skin contact, and they're telling me that I need to push out my placenta now. So and that's like the easy part, but you do have to push it out. Like it doesn't just fall out. You do have to push. So, and it's like I said, it's easier because it has no bones or no anything. And they left it connected, which is a Lotus birth, until it stopped pulsing. And you know, like left it connected long enough for me to get a cute picture. After they cut it off, they, you know, wrapped on my placenta because I was gonna keep it and get it turned into capsules by another midwife that worked at the birth center. They say that you're supposed to have a heavy protein meal after you give birth, but I was so tired I could not even chew. My mom went and got me breakfast, and I didn't even have the energy to chew my food, so I didn't eat that. But I did drink a lot of water and a lot of juice. So when I was in the bed, I fell asleep because I was tired, and the baby was asleep too. He was tired. He did a lot of work. So you know, we was there sleeping for a few hours. It was probably like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So they left the white stuff on him, which is called Vernix caseosa. So that's like these cells basically that are produced in the womb, and it's good to leave it after birth because it has like it plays a protective role for the baby on the skin. So so they left that on him because it's like good for him. And you know, they did all his vitals. So while they were doing that, I was going to take a shower. I didn't tear or rip, so I didn't like have to get any stitches. So they told me that I had to pee before I left, and if I didn't pee on my own, they were gonna have to stick a catheter up me, which I didn't want, so couldn't pee. So I'm trying to drink all the water and all the juice that I possibly can. I finally peed, got dressed, and I was out the door. Like, they gave me my instructions, like my go home instructions and stuff, like my aftercare and everything. They set me up to like put him in the car seat, help me with that, and we was on the way home. I was home by 2:30. Needless to say, I had a wonderful birth experience, and you know, I would encourage everybody, if possible. I know it's not possible for everybody. Like, I know certain things restrict people, but if it's at all possible, I would highly recommend a water birth. For like, if I could choose and make sure everybody was healthy, I would tell everybody to have a water birth, like with no medication. It's like unexplainable. I can't even put it into words how it felt. But you know, there's no pain from an epidural. You're not on a bunch of drugs. You're not on heavy medicine. So it's just a lot better. Like, you actually get to enjoy the moment that you're in. So yeah, that's my story. I will make a video, like I said, going into talking about the benefits of a water birth and a lotus birth and explaining what those are. So stay tuned.
It's been a long week, and long days.